Hello there, my Gummies, and welcome back to the Echo Chamber. Now, getting back into what if Krillin trained with King Kai after being killed by Tambourine. Now, to start this part off, we're going to be going into a quick recap. Last time, the Z-Fighters managed to beat back the Saiyans, although it came at a heavy cost. And with the death of Kami, that meant that the Dragon Balls on Earth were no longer viable. But lucky for our heroes, another solution came about, in the form of Namek. After some preparing, the group was ready to take the 6-day journey to Namek. With a team consisting of Goku, Krillin, Bulma, and now surprisingly Gohan, we'll be picking up this part right here.
Last night took a L, but tonight I bounce back. Wake up every morning, by the night I count stacks. Knew that ass was real when I hit it, bounce back.
Now, I actually want to start off this part by showcasing you guys the current power levels of each of the member of the group here. Don't hold on to these numbers too tightly, as they're going to be irrelevant in a second. I just want to be able to showcase to you guys exactly where pretty much every member that we have on the ship here, in terms of their power level, exactly where they are after the battle with the Saiyans. Now, in terms of the group, the only one who actually showcased any significant difference would have been Goku. As far as Krillin goes, again, this is pretty much the same type of scenario, and he doesn't have a Zenkai boost backing him up, so he does grow a little bit, but this is due to downtime and the fact that they were training during that downtime. As far as Gohan is concerned, and because I already pointed out that Goku did during the training that was with him and due to his high level potentials, I say that he's not going to be as strong as he was at this point during canon, because during the Saiyan saga, when he had trained for an entire year with Piccolo at that point, 6 months by himself within the wilderness, and then 6 months with Piccolo. They didn't really have that time, only about a month, so whereas I am going to have him significantly stronger than what he would be before he started training, he's definitely not going to be as strong as his Saiyan saga counterpart. But that's okay, Gohan is going to get stronger over time, so here's will be his power level as well. And as far as Bulma goes, I'm not saying that she's irrelevant, but I am saying that in terms of like actual power levels and stuff, as I think you guys would understand, she doesn't really factor into that, so we'll be skipping over her and just pretty much labeling out these. Moving on, as far as this next part of the story goes, I don't necessarily see too much that differs from canon in terms of the training, only in just who the training partners would be, such as being the fact that Gohan would be indeed entering the gravity chamber, although he's not going to reach the same level as Goku did in canon, or even the level that Goku would be reaching here at around 100 times gravity. He's definitely not going to be able to get up to that because I don't think his body could maintain that level of strain, even despite his potential and his Saiyan biology. But I do think that giving him around a 10 times boost, which would put him around 10 times gravity, would probably be significant enough to where it would be noticeable, but at the same time not entirely overbearing from where I want to go here with the story. I think that that'll be a good enough level starter for him. With, of course, both Goku and Krillin still receiving the most significant boost from the training, including increasing things like their Kaioken, and also refining more of their techniques, and including possibly the discovery of new variations on their techniques. And of course, this would extend to Gohan, and a little bit of a fun fact about this, he's actually going to be taking on more of the style in terms of his fighting ability of both Krillin and Goku, whereas originally he got most of his moveset in terms of his fighting intelligence and strategy from Piccolo in the original. Is actually going to be different this time, since Piccolo isn't really relevant here. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that Gohan will never have a relationship with Piccolo in the future. I'm just saying as of right now, in terms of his masters and mentors, he would probably, because he tends to do that whenever he trains with somebody, pick up on a lot of their skills and abilities and tries to mirror them, especially when it comes to terms of fighting and fighting ability and fighting tactics. I'm just saying that he's basically going to be mirroring that when it comes to Goku and Krillin. So you won't be seeing him do anything like the Masenko or even the special beam cannon, but more or less probably techniques more akin to the Kamehameha or the Kienzan. Moving right along, the 6 days have now passed and our group has finally touched down on Namek. Noting that other than the obvious color palette swap and the 3 suns, this planet actually has a lot of similarities to Earth, including a breathable atmosphere, that way they wouldn't need their spacesuits while traveling on the planet. Now, before we go any further, I actually want to point out exactly what the power levels are, even though both Goku and Krillin are going to be suppressed, and I will be showcasing you their suppressed power levels. Just wanted to actually go ahead and showcase to you guys exactly where they stand as of right now. Now, in terms of this next part, I was actually kind of contemplating on how I should make the change in the story, because technically in the original, both groups, that being Krillin, Gohan, and Bulma, as well as Vegeta, ended up showing up around the same time as each other, within the span of about 6 months, so it took entirely a 6-month journey. But in this story, I actually had the time significantly cut down from that, and even then it only took about 6 days. Technically speaking, Vegeta should not have shown up yet, although we don't know exactly when Frieza and the rest of his group showed up. Fitting them within this new timeline should be an easy enough squeeze, but I was very much contemplating on whether or not to have Vegeta arrive early or actually have him arrive a little bit later, maybe even around the same time that the Ginyus arrive. After some heavy contemplation, I decide I'm actually going to have Vegeta end up showing up early. Now don't worry, the boost that he receives from healing up still remains the same. The only thing that's really changing as far as this portion of the story goes is that I'll be having him arrive earlier than what he did. With that out of the way, let's continue on with the story. The group touches down, finally catching their bearings, but before they can formulate a plan of action, they are spotted by two Frieza soldiers who happen to be flying around in the area. Of course, they demand to know exactly who they are and what they're doing there, but to no one's surprise, the group doesn't feel the need to respond. And given the fact that these two people do not look anything like Piccolo, they know that they can't possibly be Namekians, as well as the fact that they see the armor that they're wearing and notice that it looks a lot similar to Vegeta. The two soldiers still demand that they answer their questions or they would be fired upon. Krillin, looking over to Goku, asks him whether or not that they should capture these guys as a way to gather up information about the situation going on. Whereas Goku indeed thought that was the wisest decision, he actually caught a glimpse of Gohan, who was standing over there looking quite antsy, as though he was very much ready and itching for a fight. Seeing the spark of adventure and excitement, Goku actually smiles, indulging into Gohan's thirst for battle, and telling Krillin that they'll let him handle it. Besides, this will be some great experience for him, after all it would be his first real fight. Krillin then smiles and shrugs, going along with it. Goku then tells Gohan to go ahead and have at it, making sure to capture them, that way they can interrogate them. With a huge smile and an okay, Gohan flies towards the duo. Of course, these guys end up feeling insulted. Not only did this group not listen to their demands, but they ended up sending a child to go and fight them. One of the soldiers looks over to his partner and tells him to blow up the ship. He doesn't want them trying to run away and escape, as they capture them to get ready to take them to Lord Frieza. The soldier then ends up pointing his blast at Gohan, both of them firing at the same time. But as I've already shown you guys, Gohan is significantly stronger than these two, and is more than capable of handling the situation. But that actually ends up being a problem, as he's too strong, not only blocking off both blasts, but when he actually goes up there to attack these guys, given the fact that he's not acclimating to the lesser gravity, and he hasn't focused on holding his power back, he actually ends up killing both of them, to the shock of everyone below. Of course, apologizing profusely, as he didn't mean to do it. Goku does lecture him a little bit on it about controlling his strength, and that he should be more careful next time, but in the end he decides to let it go, as he understands that it was an honest mistake. And even though they lost two people that could have been of valuable information to them, it didn't really end up being that big of a deal, as they figured that they would probably end up running into some more along the way. Bulma, thinking quickly, ends up capsuling the ship, as they wouldn't want something like that to happen again to where somebody tries to destroy it. The group decides that their next course of action would actually be do some reconnaissance. They don't just want to jump headlong into a battle, especially when they don't know the danger of the situation. Sure, those two soldiers may have been pretty weak, but the next couple that they meet could be significantly stronger, let alone if once again Vegeta is actually on the planet. Masking their powers in of traveling. Their first course of action, in addition to doing recon, is to find a safe place in order to set up base. They end up coming across a cave. Bulma pointing out that this cave would do just fine, it was more than big enough. Not only was it well hidden, it would be a great base of operations for them to move from. But right in that moment, the trio of Gohan, Goku, and Krillin all get a sharp feeling, as they sense an enormous power heading their way. Looking up towards the sky where the power was coming from, they see a space pod, and actually sensing closer, both Krillin and Goku say in unison, "Vegeta?" as they were able to pick up on his key signature. Kicking in the action, the group hurries into the cave and begins to set up camp. As now, given the fact that their suspicions have been confirmed, they want to quickly try and get out there to start focusing on their reconnaissance, usually trying to attempt to get ahead of Vegeta. But right as they're preparing to make the move, another sharp signal ends up going off, and they end up sensing a massive amount of power heading towards their direction. Both Goku and Krillin actually end up breaking a sweat, as the amount of power that they were feeling was far larger and more significant than anything they felt up to that point. Significant enough, in fact, that it triggered their fight or flight response. Instantly grabbing both Gohan and Bulma, they rushed into the cave, masking their powers down to the absolute level that they possibly could, as to not be picked up by any of these guys. After the group had passed, the team ended up breathing a sigh of relief. Both Krillin and Goku noting that the one who was leading the charge had to have been their leader, and that this mission was far more dangerous than either of them realized. But not only that, Bulma chimed in with some more bad news, given the fact that as they flew by, the Dragon radar ended up going off, pinging that there were several Dragon Balls that were flying by as well. meaning not only the foes they were facing now were much more dangerous and much stronger, but that also they were the thing that was separating the group from their goal. Both Goku and Krillin gave each other a serious look, knowing exactly what they would have to do, and without saying another word, Krillin extended his hand out towards Bulma, motioning to give him the radar. She understood exactly what he was asking and handed it to him. She told them to be careful and that she would monitor the home front as well as try to get in contact with everyone back on Earth to let them know to update them on the situation. Both Krillin and Goku nodded before heading out of the cave. They both nod at her, but right as they're about to take off, they both notice that Gohan was trailing behind them, ready to take off with them. However, Goku stops him, putting out a hand to prevent him from going any further. "No, Gohan, you're staying here. We're not going to take you this time." "But father, please! I know you both sensed it, that immense power. That's exactly why you're staying here. Look, we'll be a lot more vulnerable with you out there, so I won't hear any more argument on it. You're staying." "But, Dad..." "Look, Gohan, Goku is right. You have to stay. Besides, you have an important job here too, and you're the only one capable of doing it. You have to protect Bulma, and your father and I can only trust you to be able to handle this." Gohan, although a bit saddened and upset, ended up complying with both the wishes of Goku and Krillin. Goku even patting him on the head and tousling his hair, as to let him know that he was proud of him, and that he did indeed trust him to be able to handle this. Krillin then activated the radar, informing them that there were several Dragon Balls nearby. Goku then grabbed onto Krillin's shoulder and put 2 fingers to his head, and began to search out any energies in that direction. Immediately he picks up on the group, including the massive power that they felt before. He teleported both him and Krillin towards the location. Goku ended up teleporting both of them to a nearby cliffside, where they were overlooking a village, seeing that there were 2 sets of people down there. Ones who look exactly like Piccolo, which they both surmised were the Namekians, and the other ones who were wearing the same armor as Vegeta. They also were able to spot the Dragon Balls were being held by several members of the group, thus picking up on the fact that these must have been the people that they were sensing earlier. The 2 decide to lay low to see how everything played out. As they were mainly doing reconnaissance, trying to gather up information, and look for any openings as to where to strike. Now from here, the story pretty much follows canon, leading up to the deaths of both Cargo and Mori. And whereas though both Goku and Krillin were far more reserved and able to keep up their composure, they couldn't hold back anymore. Springing into action with a burst of speed and power, he actually ends up killing Dodoria in 1 hit before he could kill Dende. The scene looking reminiscent of Kid Goku vs. Drum, where essentially he hits him 1 time, causing him to explode upon impact. This left both Frieza and Zarbon utterly dumbfounded. Their mouths literally gaped open as to the absolute shock as to what they just saw, including Zarbon even dropping the Dragon Balls as he was so surprised. Krillin ended up grabbing onto Dende, but before teleporting away, he told Goku to see if he can try to grab at least some of the Dragon Balls. He used a key sweep attack, which ended up kicking a lot of dirt and dust, creating a smoke screen. And using that as a distraction, he teleported to where Zarbon was, kicking him in the back and sending him flying, before grabbing 2 of the Dragon Balls and teleporting out, right as Frieza was actually aiming an attack at him. This goes to show you how quick on his feet he was. Once the smoke cleared, Zarbon, who had just got through eating the dirt, coughing a little bit, he looks up towards to see a pissed off Frieza, one who's radiating his power. Immediately Zarbon goes into begging for his life and promising that he would hunt down all of them and bring their heads back to him on a platter, as well as retrieving the Dragon Balls. Frieza, glaring at him, told him to go, and he better not fail like Dodoria did, as he took the remaining Dragon Balls and headed back towards his ship, thinking to himself that he would have to call down for reinforcements, not only because he needed new scouters after they were all destroyed by Mori, but also that he had no real high expectation that Zarbon would survive, especially given the fact that whoever these people were, they seemed to have some tricks up on their sleeves that allowed them to not only hide themselves, but be able to vanish in thin air. Frieza saying to himself that he would have to call down the Ginyu Force. Zarbon, who had already taken off in the other direction, was looking around frantically, flying as fast as he could at his maximum speed, the fear of death having been thoroughly put into him. Also given the fact that he was extremely angry and upset at the fact that not only was Dodoria dead, but also that he had been blindsided. As he flew, he began to get more panicked and panicked as his scouter was picking up nothing until a ki blast came flying towards him, which almost blindsided him again. Lucky he thought quickly on his feet and managed to block the attack. Zarbon yelling out for whoever did that to come out and show themselves. That would be me. Turning behind him, Zarbon sees none other than Vegeta, his arms crossed and a sinister smile etched across his face. Oh look, if it isn't Vegeta. And here I was wondering what the smell and stench of monkey was around here. Wait a second. Zarbon then thought to himself, thinking back to moments before, where he ended up getting a notification on his scouter that Vegeta had ended up killing Qui. And with the current events being as they are, he couldn't help but jump to conclusions, thinking to himself that Vegeta was a part of it, demanding to know if he was with those people that he was chasing. Vegeta was confused and had no idea who he was talking about. Zarbon would then go on to demand Vegeta stop playing dumb, describing what the two people looked like who attacked them, even pointing out that the one who looked like Goku ended up killing the Doria. Vegeta began to laugh at the mentioning of these events. So that blubberingo finally met his end. Not surprising, but that does leave me a bit curious. Why are you here, Kakarot? Zarbon, hearing what Vegeta was saying, goes on to say that he knew it, that Vegeta was indeed working with them, and that he was indeed happy that they ended up meeting him here, because now he could take him back to Lord Frieza for interrogation to find out exactly who those people are, and why are they after the Dragon Balls. Vegeta then smirks, telling Zarbon that no such thing will be happening, that in fact, this is where he's going to take his final breath. Zarbon laughed at him, telling him that just because he was able to defeat Qui doesn't mean that he'll be able to stand up to him, and that he shouldn't put them in the same category, that Zarbon was far stronger than somebody like him could ever be, including far stronger than somebody like Vegeta could ever be as well. Vegeta then told him to shut up, to take his stance so that way they can get this fight started. And this fight pretty much goes the same way as it does in canon, at first the two being even and then Vegeta ending up getting the upper hand, only for Zarbon to then transform and completely overpower him. But after defeating Vegeta, unlike what he did in canon, he actually ends up radioing to Frieza that he had captured Vegeta, informing him that he knew who those people were that ended up coming after them, and that he probably could have a lead as to where they were taking the Dragon Balls. Frieza was elated at this news and told him to bring him back to the ship for interrogation. While this was going on back at the cave, Goku, Krillin, Bulma, and Gohan had just got through listening to Dende explain to them exactly what the situation was, and even explaining to them about the nature of the Dragon Balls on Namek and how they work, including the fact that you would need a password, or i.e. just know how to speak Namekian, in order to be able to activate the Dragon Balls, and including informing them as to where they could find Grand Elder Guru. Finally, we transfer over to Frieza's spaceship, where he's just gotten finished talking to the Ginyu Force, who informed him that they would be there shortly, bringing him the new scouters that he requested.
And that was the end right there, guys. So, wow. Quite a good setup, I would say. I think for the most part, the only thing I would say I had really a lot of trouble with was kind of like writing in a lot of these people in terms of the timeline, stuff like that, but I think we did a good workaround, and I know that some people like to have ultra consistency, and they like to say, oh, it has to be in this time frame, but given that this is a one-if, I would hope that you guys give me a bit of leniency, and kind of like express the idea that I'm gonna have to deviate and change up some things. I mean, this is the nature of any adaptation, or any type of story, really, that is coming from another source. Yeah, you're gonna have to tend to kind of like, when you're adapting it, especially, change up a few things here and there, so I figured that it still works for the story in which I wanted to personally tell. Like I said, it took me a while before, thinking about how exactly I wanted to incorporate it, but I think for the most part, I did a good job, setting up, I think I did for the most part a good job setting everything up and, exactly what's going to happen here. Some of you probably can kind of like guess, or, maybe some of you are speculating. That's kind of like how I like to leave it, to where some people may guess certain things are going to happen, other people are just kind of like in that speculation mode. Just like a really good setup chapter. There were things that happened, there were events that were put into motion, and all in all, I think that this was a pretty good part within the saga to kind of like say that it's not necessarily filler, but at the same time you can kind of still relax a bit before, it's like the calm before the storm, right? But the storm, you got to see little glimpses of the storm, but it's still right now calm, but you know what's coming. Anyway, catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
And to all my Gummy Knights, new and old, just remember, this is a man's world, but it would be nothing without his brain and his bronze. And lying is indeed the most fun that a woman can have, without taking off her clothes. Good night.
Swear to stick it up in you, suddenly I sit over still so young, desperate for attention, I aim to be your eyes, Sophie boy, Sophie wild.
days are not who you think, so we'll pick back up on that on another page.